Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into something I think a lot of us can relate to. The idea that it's never too late to learn new things.
It's something we hear all the time.
It is, but is there actually any truth to it? Well, we're going to find out by looking at this really interesting podcast episode from English Dose called It's Never Too Late to Learn Something New.
I like that title.
Me too. It's very encouraging.
It is, and I think it's something a lot of people wonder about, especially as they get older.
Absolutely. So in this deep dive, we're going to try to figure out what the science says about our ability to learn as we age. And we'll also explore some practical tips for embracing new learning opportunities no matter where you are in life.
Sounds like a plan.
Now, one of the first things this English Dose episode addressed is that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely heard that one a few times.
Haven't we all? But the episode challenges this idea head on by introducing us to this concept called neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity.
Yeah, it sounds a little intimidating at first, right?
It does, but it's actually a pretty simple concept when you break it down.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Basically, neuroplasticity refers to the brain's amazing ability to change and adapt throughout our lives.
So it's not like our brains just become fixed in a certain age.
Not at all.
That's good to know.
It is. Think of your brain kind of like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger and more flexible it becomes.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, and neuroplasticity is what allows us to learn new things, form new memories, and adapt to new situations.
It was happening all the time.
It is. Every time you learn something new, your brain is forming new connections between neurons and strengthening existing ones.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is. And this means that no matter how old we get, our brains are still capable of learning and growing.
So we really can teach those old dogs new tricks.
Exactly. And while learning might take a bit longer as we age, adults often have some advantages that kids don't.
Oh, that's interesting. Like what?
Well, think about it. Adults generally have more life experience, focus, and discipline, which can be really helpful when it comes to learning.
It makes sense. Like we're better at setting goals, managing our time, and sticking with something even when it gets tough.
Exactly. Plus, all those years of living and experiencing the world provide a rich context for new learning.
That's a great point. Like if you're learning about history, for example,
Yeah.
all your personal experiences travels, even the books you've read, add layers of understanding that a younger person might not have.
Exactly. It's like each piece of knowledge builds upon a foundation of a lifetime of experiences.
So it's not just about learning new things, it's about connecting them to everything we already know.
Exactly.
So we're not just old dogs trying to learn new tricks, we're actually bringing a whole lot to the table.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important thing to remember because sometimes we can get discouraged when we compare ourselves to younger learners who seem to pick things up so quickly.
I know, I've definitely felt that way sometimes.
But the truth is that we all learn at our own pace, and we all have our own unique strengths and challenges.
That's a good reminder. So I guess the key takeaway here is that thanks to neuroplasticity, our brains are wired for lifelong learning.
Exactly. It's never too late to explore new interests, develop new skills, and expand our understanding of the world around us.
I love that. So I guess the next question is, what are some of the benefits of embracing lifelong learning?
Well, I think one of the most obvious benefits is that it keeps our minds sharp.
Right, like a mental workout.
Exactly. But there are also some other amazing benefits that people might not be aware of.
Like what? I'm curious to hear more about this.
Okay, well, let's dive into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good to me. I'm ready to learn even more about the amazing power of lifelong learning.
So we were talking about the benefits of lifelong learning.
Yes. Beyond just keeping our minds sharp.
Right. Well, one area that I think is often overlooked is the emotional benefit.
The emotional benefit. Tell me more.
Well, learning something new, whether it's a skill, a language, or even just a new subject, it can give you this incredible sense of accomplishment.
I can see that.
It's like you're pushing past your comfort zone and proving to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought.
Right, and that can be a real confidence booster.
Exactly. And it can also bring a lot of joy and excitement to your life.
Like that aha moment
Yeah.
when you finally understand something you've been struggling with.
Yes. Or the feeling of creating something beautiful or mastering a new technique.
It's almost like you've unlocked a new part of yourself.
That's a great way to put it.
And it's not just about the individual benefits either.
Oh, right. Lifelong learning can have some pretty amazing social benefits, too.
Really? Like how?
Well, think about it. When you take a class or join a group or even just watch online tutorials, You're opening yourself up to a whole new world of connections.
That's true. You meet people who share your interests.
Exactly. You learn from their experience.
You expand your social circle.
And you might even make some lifelong friends along the way.
So it's not just about learning. It's about connecting with others who share your passion.
It is. And I think that's something that's really important, especially as we get older.
Yeah, I agree, because sometimes it can feel like our social circles start to shrink as we age.
That's true. But lifelong learning can help us combat that.
It gives us a reason to get out there, meet new people, and try new things.
Exactly. So not only are we keeping our brains active, but we're also fostering a sense of purpose, building confidence, and connecting with others.
Wow, that's a pretty compelling argument for embracing lifelong learning.
Mm,
But I have to admit, sometimes the thought of starting something new can feel a bit overwhelming.
I understand.
Like, where do you even begin?
Yeah, it can definitely feel that way, especially if you've been out of the learning game for a while.
Exactly. So for those of us who are feeling a bit intimidated, what are some practical tips for getting started?
Well, one thing that the English Dose episode really emphasized was the importance of finding something that genuinely excites you.
That makes sense. Like something you're actually curious about.
Right. It could be anything, learning to play an instrument, taking up photography, exploring a new cuisine, or even diving into a fascinating historical period.
The key is to tap into your curiosity and let that be your guide.
Exactly. Because when you're passionate about something, learning becomes so much easier and more enjoyable.
It does. I know when I'm really interested in something, I can spend hours researching and practicing without even realizing it.
Right. But what about if you have a million interests? How do you choose just one to focus on?
That's a good question. I struggle with that myself sometimes.
Well, I think it's less about limiting yourself and more about starting small.
Starting small.
Yeah. Don't try to become an expert overnight.
Okay, good advice.
Just pick one thing that sparks your interest and dip your toes in.
Like what?
Well, you could take an introductory class, watch a few online tutorials, read a book on the subject.
Okay.
The goal is to explore and see where that curiosity leads you.
I like that approach
Yeah.
because sometimes we get so caught up in the idea of mastery that we forget about the joy of simply exploring something new.
Exactly. And remember, mistakes are part of the process.
Well, they definitely are.
Don't be afraid to experiment, try different approaches, and learn from your setbacks.
That's such an important point. I think sometimes we avoid trying new things because we're afraid of failing or looking silly.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
But if we can shift our perspective to see mistakes as opportunities for learning and growth, it takes a lot of the pressure off.
That's so true. It's like giving yourself permission to be a beginner again.
Exactly. And that brings us to the concept of a growth mindset, which the episode also touched upon.
Growth mindset. I've heard that term before.
Yeah, it's become quite popular in recent years.
It has, but to be honest, I'm not entirely sure I understand what it means.
Okay, well, in a nutshell, it's basically the belief that your abilities aren't fixed, that you can improve your skills and intelligence through effort and learning.
Oh, interesting.
It's about embracing challenges, seeing setbacks as temporary, and focusing on the process of growth rather than just the end result.
So instead of saying, I'm terrible at math, someone with a growth mindset would say, I'm learning and getting better at math every day.
Exactly. And that subtle shift in perspective can have a profound impact on your learning journey.
Oh, really?
It allows you to be more resilient, more persistent, and ultimately more successful in achieving your learning goals.
Wow, that's powerful. So we've got neuroplasticity working in our favor, a whole host of amazing benefits and practical tips for getting started.
Yep.
It seems like everything is pointing us towards embracing lifelong learning.
It does, doesn't it?
But let's be honest, there are still those nagging doubts and fears that can hold us back.
Oh, absolutely. I think we all experience those from time to time.
Like that feeling of being too old to learn something new.
Oh, yeah, that's a common one.
Like that old saying about the dog and new tricks comes back to haunt us.
It does. And I think part of the problem is that our culture often glorifies youth and speed. We're constantly bombarded with messages that tell us we need to be achieving, succeeding, and mastering things at a breakneck pace.
Right. And that can make us feel like we're falling behind if we're not constantly learning and growing at the same rate as everyone else.
Exactly. But the truth is that comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh, I love that saying.
Everyone learns at their own pace.
They do. And everyone starts somewhere.
The beauty of lifelong learning is that it's not a competition.
That's such a good point. It's a personal journey of discovery and growth.
It is.
I love that perspective.
And sometimes I think that fear of looking silly or being behind is actually masking a deeper fear.
Oh, what do you mean?
The fear of discovering our true potential.
Wow, that's interesting.
What if we actually excel at something we never thought we could do?
Hmm. I've never thought about it that way
Yeah.
before, but I can see how that could be scary for some people.
It can be because it challenges our self-perceptions.
Right.
It forces us to step outside of our comfort zones and embrace the unknown.
It's like we've created these self-imposed limitations, and learning has the power to break through those barriers and reveal a whole new world of possibilities.
Exactly. And that can be both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time.
So how do we overcome these fears and tap into that incredible potential? What's the key to unlocking the magic of lifelong learning?
Well, I think it starts with a simple shift in mindset.
Okay.
Acknowledge the fears,
Okay.
but don't let them control you.
Right.
Remember that learning is a gift you give yourself,
It is.
a journey of self-discovery and growth.
And it's about finding joy in the process, celebrating every small victory,
Yes,
and never losing sight of your inherent capacity to learn and evolve.
that's beautifully said.
That's such a beautiful way to put it. It's about embracing the journey, not just the destination.
It is.
And it's a journey we can embark on at any age.
Absolutely. It's never too late to start learning, growing, and discovering the incredible potential within you.
That's incredibly inspiring. I think we've covered so much in this deep dive, from debunking that myth about old dogs and new tricks to exploring all these amazing benefits of lifelong learning.
We have. It's been quite a journey.
It has. And, I'm curious, what are some of the biggest obstacles that you think prevent people from pursuing their learning goals? Like, even after hearing all this, why might someone still hesitate?
Hmm. Well, I think one of the biggest challenges, honestly, is just finding the time.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
I mean, our lives are so busy.
They are.
It can be tough to prioritize learning when you're juggling work-family commitments.
And everything else life throws at you.
Exactly. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and put your own personal growth on the back burner.
It is. And then on top of that, there's that fear of failure.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
I think a lot of people are hesitant to try new things because they're afraid of making mistakes or looking foolish.
I agree, and that fear can be paralyzing.
It can. It keeps people from taking those first steps toward learning something new.
It does. And it's a shame because, as we discussed earlier, mistakes are actually an essential part of the learning process.
They are. They're opportunities for growth and improvement.
Exactly. It's all about embracing that growth mindset and understanding that our abilities aren't fixed.
Right. We can always learn and improve with effort and practice.
And sometimes even more importantly, with patience.
That's true. So for anyone listening who's feeling inspired to learn something new, but maybe a little hesitant to take that first step, what would be your advice? What would you tell them?
Well, first I'd say start small. Find something that genuinely excites you, something you're actually curious about. And most importantly, be kind to yourself. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to be perfect. Just enjoy the process of learning and growing.
That's such great advice. And it really echoes what we've been talking about throughout this whole deep dive.
It does, doesn't it?
The power to learn and grow is truly within each of us. Our brains are wired for it. There are countless benefits, and even small steps can lead to incredible transformations.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you today.
Likewise. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this journey of lifelong learning. We hope you've learned something new and feel inspired to keep those brains buzzing.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a pottery class to get to.
Oh, that's fantastic. Have fun, and remember, embrace the mess.
I will. And to everyone listening, we'd love to hear from you. What's one small step you can take today towards learning something new? Maybe share with us on social media. Who knows, you might just inspire someone else to take the plunge as well.
That's a great idea. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those brains engaged.